So there we go, practical. And I am delighted to welcome my fireside chat person, Diarmuid O'Donghue, BT Source, to the stage. Please. Do you want to go there? There we go. It's a fireside chat where we sit.
Fire's behind us.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. Tell us who you are. What do you do?
First and foremost, I hope everyone had a bit of a walk to balance off the dessert, keep the energy going. Also, big congratulations to Drasco and your army behind you. I'm definitely leaving here revitalised, ready to go. But as Rachel said, I'm really excited to see your product roadmap. We kind of want it yesterday, please. If you could hurry it up a bit as well. But yeah, my name is Diarmuid O'Donghue. I head up essentially the digital garage of BT Sourced.
Digital garage.
Exactly. So a bit about maybe BT Sourced and what we are. I'll jump into the world of the digital garage. So essentially BT Sourced, for those of you who don't know, is essentially a separate corporate entity based in Dublin, Ireland. And we provide procurement services to British Telecom. That is basically our challenge, has been to, I suppose, revolutionise how we procure services for British Telecom. Obviously, digital is a key aspect of that, obviously. And we're essentially like a transformative unit for BT Sourced, and potentially in the future we may spin off into something else. I'm delighted to say I head up the digital garage. The digital garage is a concept that we've seen other companies over the last few years, J&J, BP, I don't know if Nick is still around, model. But essentially it's an incubation unit to partner with startups in the ProcureTech area. I think we're probably lucky that we kind of set up BT Sourced and I suppose the digital garage at a time where the ecosystem was exploding. That didn't make the job any much easier, I would say. But in practice, what we would do is our business units come to us within procurement with a use case problem. Defining that use case problem can be difficult. Everyone knows to define what that is. But basically, once we have that clear remit, we would scout the market for a tool. And we've seen plenty of them over the last 2 days. Scout, do a demo, and work with that business unit to basically implement that tool to a certain stage. Happily say, Cirtuo was one of our first use cases, really important use cases, for a number of reasons. I think as a company, we had to shift the culture. If you think about it, we basically shifted a number of people and new people to a full new location, a location where none of our stakeholders are essentially based. So we had to drive that, I suppose, cultural piece and also that key strategy piece and the value tracking, which is really important for us to show, I suppose, really quick delivery of, I suppose, BT Source as an entity. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question about digital garage. And we heard this morning, not just best of breed, but best solutions, ecosystems, death of the big end-to-end providers. And that sounds fantastic. But for anyone who's tried to get Microsoft to talk to a printer software, the realities of connecting stuff in an ecosystem are not so fantastic. So what's been your experience of the reality of that digital garage? I mean, how do you make sure that what you're bringing in genuinely works and doesn't become a problem in its own right? I mean, what's your experience of that been? Yeah, we've learned, as Eloise talked about, we've had failures. It hasn't been perfect. I think what we've learned is to really involve our key business owners from the start. That doesn't mean once we make a decision on a Cirtuo or sourcing tool, it's literally from that problem idea. So if you're working with me on a certain category, you're involved from that idea, problem statement through go live. So that's been really, really important to us. I suppose reaffirming messages. We've learned if you have a training, one training doesn't cut it. You have to reaffirm the same messages over and over and over. I suppose give people that responsibility and those KPIs, which we might touch on later, to kind of target as well. Got it. So, okay, if we focus in on category strategies, and obviously one of the big adopters of Cirtuo and the first iteration of AI guided strategy creation. I mean, what's your observation about the role that Cirtuo and that sort of digital category strategy is having for BT Source to provide those procurement services to the organisation? Yeah, I was thinking about this obviously before today, and I was trying to think, we have a best of breed digital type solutions, and we have a number of key pillars for BT Source: data, digital, savings, risk, and ESG. And I don't think there's any other technology that we work with that covers all of those. That says a lot for us and the partnership we have with Cirtuo. So on the data side, we talked about data, whether that's spend visibility, whether that's ingesting other kind of risk ESG data involved in that. Digital is really key for us. The team have shown their plan when it comes to AI. That doesn't mean we're going to see AI as a strategy. We see AI as an enabler we have plenty of other problems out there. Savings has really been key. So trying to drive that value delivery. We might go into a bit of detail on this, but basically pre-Cirtuo, we had no tracking, basically locally. If we had it was kind of their own methodology. We had a lack of trust in the numbers, lack of credibility. But basically where we're at now with lots of hard work and sweat and tears, basically we have what we've kind of built is a separate, which is very important actually. I think it was Vel touched on it about the kind of credibility of the numbers. We actually have a separate procurement finance team that actually reports into a separate finance director. So we have that kind of auditability and separation, which has been really key. They've created their own methodology using certain stage gates, which gives us that credibility, and that drives that collaboration. We're also on leveraging Cirtuo. Every year, our team are now involved in the MTP or the budget planning.
Right.
And we can now basically challenge the units on what they might come to us. We touched a bit on that in the cab yesterday about, can procurement or should procurement challenge the units. I think we said we would, but we're happy to say we do, but that's not as easy as you might think. But we have visibility to units, budgets as well, leveraging Cirtuo as well.
Got it. I know BT of old, and BT of old, when it came to make versus buy, they tended to go down the make route. There was a big industry. I mean, contract management solution, I think, is still an in-house build. I mean, what with BT sourced, it isn't. It's absolutely a buy tech. I mean, what do you think culturally has allowed you that freedom? Is it the fact that you've just broken out and become a autonomous entity and therefore you can do your own thing? Or is it actually you've looked at the market and said, making stuff when people are doing it better is just not the way forward?
Well, interestingly enough, we have a buy version, which is the team that I run, which is the software ecosystem.
Right.
We actually have a separate negotiation analytics team, which is basically a group of data scientists and data engineers.
Right.
So we actually have our own make versus buy model. So they've actually developed in-house products such as, and we talked about it earlier on, like if it's a Nokia of this world and we're negotiating across the table, our team in BT Source have built an in-house product which can kind of scan annual reports of Nokia or any other provider it may be, and give that, I suppose, balance that kind of negotiation power with the supplier.
Okay.
We also have a tool, for example, that they built around PO forecasting. So the whole kind of prescriptive, predictive analytics. But I just mentioned we still have that kind of new, which we kind of joke with our internal like R&D type team. And going back to your question, I think it goes back to, I suppose, the delivery on the metrics. I think that was really important to us from day one. And as we said, Cirtuo were probably one of the first use cases we identified that we need to kind of look at the strategy element and have a tracking, an initiative tracking that will show the value of, I suppose, BT sourced to come. Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you. And to be fair, I did pre-warn there. Lessons from doing it, because it's gone well. You're using it well. That's clear. We're going to talk a bit more this afternoon. In fact, we've got a panel on it. Not every implementation goes, as well as you want. And I know because I was part of one of the things that went wrong with your Cirtuo implementation.
And it wasn't your fault.
No, okay. Okay. It was a collective. And how about that? I mean, it was just a really silly thing. Cirtuo Procurement, the CPO, had set a target, right? We're going to implement and roll out to 250, 260 category managers in one program. He set a 2-week window where every category manager was given 10 minutes to present. And he had the whole procurement leadership team in the room, and we had done a lot of preparation. I mean, everyone was ready to present. And Chris, who was running the program at the time, I got this panicked phone call 5 minutes after the first presentation had started. In fact, it was a WhatsApp message that said, "It's all gone wrong, call me," which is not the best message to get from a client. Do you know what we'd forgotten? The first category manager, I mean, everything was ready. They had the presentation done. It was superb. when they started their presentation, it hadn't even occurred to us that the procurement leadership team had no clue what they were looking at. And it wasn't PowerPoint. And the poor category manager, instead of getting asked questions about what the strategy was getting asked questions about, well, what does that do? And what's this? And where did that come from? Because they didn't realise. It's a long lead in, and I take responsibility for that, but it's a good learning. But I mean, looking back on the journey that you've been on with Cirtuo, if you were advising someone who's just going to start that journey, what are the little things to watch out for to make sure that that implementation is successful? I mean, what are your insights into how to make that work?
We touched on it earlier, and we said we definitely have learned through different experiences. Just give an example, we're looking at piloting a new tool at the minute, and just last week I was in with the procurement leadership team, giving them a demo on said tool. So obviously, we've learned from experiences. So going back to the earlier point, you have to involve your business users, the problem statement people from the outset. So we try that. It's a bit of a balance. Obviously, people say they want to get involved a lot. They may not have the time, but you have to be shown, I suppose, to provide that digital leadership, being upfront, asking for feedback, essentially. So, that's really key. Setting the culture to the why you're doing this. So we as a BT Source have our own mission statement, which is, we source for a better future, and that is made up of certain elements within it. But I suppose always continually joining why you use digital, why you want data, why you're training people is to your kind of mission as a company, or your shareholders' missions or objectives as well.
Wonderful. If there was one thing that you were going to advise, someone who's starting on that journey of implementing not just Cirtuo, but any AI-driven tool, I mean, what would be the one thing that you would advise them to do?
Yeah, what I love about these type of events is sometimes you just get back to basics. I think you can kind of lose that mindset when you're daily work. I think, as like we said, it's just really be really clear on what the use case problem is. Right. We were having a joke with the guys earlier on yesterday around, like, they actually received an RFI for AI technology. So be really clear, document what the problem is, what are those KPIs. I think if you can manage that up front, you've done 80% of the problem.
Wonderful. Yeah. We've got time for a question. If anyone wants to ask a question. Someone who's done it. If not, I'm going to sneak one in. Right, I'll sneak one in. What is it? 2 years, 3 years in now? BT Source? 3 years.
3 years this month.
What's the scores on the doors? Is it working, or is it a work in progress? How would you characterize it?
Is it ever working? It's definitely work in progress. I think, as we mentioned, there's been a lot of geopolitical windfalls, inflation that is, I suppose, made where we probably want to be at this stage a bit slower. But our work is never done, whether that comes to who we work with from a digital perspective, the problems that we have. We were chatting about contract management yesterday. These problems will be there, and I think we need to balance out, I suppose, like I said, the people element. The L&D element is really key to. We're investing in L&D. We're actually doing up our own procurement academy, for example, with a local university in Dublin, which is going live this year. Okay. So the L&D type of things is building up, which is going to hopefully build the outcomes of the digital aspects as well.
Very cool. Thank you. Well, look, Diarmuid is going to join us again for a panel at the end of the day. But for now, Diarmuid, thanks very much indeed. Bravo.
Thanks. Cheers.